The warning klaxon screamed through Station Omega 9, a sound that had become more familiar than silence to Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Sweat beaded on her forehead, cutting clean lines through the grime and residual coolant spray that coated her face. Around her, the research station, humanity's last outpost of scientific hope, trembled like a wounded animal. Reactor breach in Section 3. Marcus Chin's voice crackled through the comm system, his tone a mixture of panic and calculated precision. We've got approximately 17 minutes before total system collapse. Elena's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her mind racing faster than the failing systems around her. Station Omega 9 wasn't just a research facility. It was humanity's final middle finger to a galaxy that had written them off as irrelevant. Perched at the edge of explored space, the station represented everything humanity had left: determination, creativity, and an absolutely insane capacity to survive against impossible odds. The station's dozen remaining crew members were a testament to humanity's most desperate talent pool. Rejected by Earth's increasingly bureaucratic scientific community and scorned by the Galactic Concordance, they were the misfits, the dreamers, the last true innovators. Aisha, I need quantum stabilization protocols. Elena shouted to her xenolinguistics expert, who was already recalibrating a series of experimental nanite systems. Dr. Aisha Okoi's dark eyes blazed with an intensity that could melt through starship hulls. I'm generating a quantum entanglement field. It's never been tested at this scale, but... A violent shudder interrupted her. The reactor's quantum core was destabilizing, its exotic matter beginning to leak in ways that defied every known principle of physics. This wasn't just a mechanical failure. It was a fundamental breakdown of technological boundaries. Elena realized they had moments to act. The Concordance would love nothing more than to see this human outpost, this last bastion of independent research, finally expire. But surrender had never been in her vocabulary. Marcus, route emergency power through the medical nanite network. She commanded. It was an impossible solution, a hack so crazy it might just work. Medical nanites were designed for cellular repair, not quantum reactor stabilization. But humans had always been masters of improvisational technology. Where other species saw rigid systems, humans saw opportunities for radical reimagining. The nanites began to swarm through the reactor's failing systems, their adaptive algorithms learning and adjusting with each microsecond. They weren't just repairing. They were evolving, creating solutions that no pre-programmed system could anticipate. Suddenly, a strange signal pierced through the chaos. It was unlike anything they'd ever encountered. A mathematical whisper that seemed to dance between quantum states, carrying a complexity that suggested something far beyond standard communication protocols. Are you seeing this? Marcus whispered, his cybernetic implant flickering with unprecedented neural activity. The signal was a puzzle, a challenge. It didn't conform to any known communication standard. It shifted, adapted, transformed with each attempt to analyze it. Most scientific teams would have dismissed it as background noise or system interference. But this was Station Omega 9, and these were not ordinary scientists. As the last of the reactor's critical systems stabilized, saved by nothing short of scientific sorcery, Elena noticed something extraordinary. The mysterious signal had responded to their crisis, not just passively recorded it, but seemingly interacted with their desperate technological improvisation. We just did the impossible, Aisha murmured, her fingers tracing the signal's complex mathematical landscape, and something out there was watching. The station's emergency lights cast long shadows across faces etched with exhaustion and triumph. They had survived. More importantly, they had done so in a way that defied every expectation the galaxy had of humanity. Outside the station's reinforced windows, the infinite darkness of space seemed to pulse with newfound potential. Something had changed, and humanity's last, desperate outpost of innovation was about to become the spark that would ignite a stellar revolution. Elena Rodriguez allowed herself the ghost of a smile. Their real journey was just beginning. The mysterious signal consumed every waking moment of the station Omega 9 crew. What had begun as a cryptic mathematical whisper during their reactor crisis had transformed into an obsession that defied conventional scientific understanding. Marcus Chen hunched over the primary analysis console, his cybernetic implant casting a pale blue glow across his weathered features. The implant, a reminder of a near-fatal experimental procedure that had nearly killed him, now pulsed with an unprecedented level of neural activity. "It's alive," he muttered, more to himself than to Alina, who stood watching nearby. "This isn't just a signal. It's a living mathematical language." Dr. Aisha Okoye approached, her fingers dancing across a secondary holographic display. Unlike traditional xenolinguistic analysis, this signal refused to be parsed by standard computational models. It shifted, adapted, transformed with each attempt to decode its structure. The mathematical complexity is beyond anything in the Galactic Concordance archives, Aisha explained, her voice a mixture of excitement and genuine terror. "It's not just communication. It's a test." Before they could delve deeper, a violent disruption rocked the station. The external sensors screamed a warning. A Concordance surveillance ship had locked onto their position, its weapon systems charging with lethal intent. "They found us," Alina said coldly, her fingers already flying across the emergency control systems. The Concordance had always viewed humanity as a potential threat, a species too unpredictable, too prone to technological leaps that defied their carefully maintained galactic hierarchy. This wasn't just about scientific research anymore. This was about survival. Marcus's cybernetic implant began to pulse with increasing intensity. "I've got an idea," he announced, a dangerous glint in his eye. "But it's going to be insane, even by our standards." The surveillance ship's weapons began to charge, preparing to obliterate Station Omega 9 and its crew. Standard protocol would be to prepare defensive shields, to attempt communication or surrender. But there was nothing standard about this crew. "Activate the sensor jamming protocol," Alina commanded. But this was no ordinary jamming. Marcus had been working on a quantum interference field that would not just block sensors, but create a cascading uncertainty effect. The station's systems began to warp. Reality itself seemed to bend around them, creating multiple quantum states simultaneously. To any external observation, Station Omega 9 would appear to exist everywhere and nowhere, a mathematical impossibility that would confound even the most advanced tracking systems. "The signal," Aisha suddenly whispered, "it's responding to our action." Indeed, the mysterious mathematical language seemed to pulse in synchronization with their desperate technological improvisation. Where other civilizations saw chaos, this signal recognized something deeper, an adaptive intelligence that defied conventional understanding. The Concordance surveillance ship fired, but its weapons passed through nothing but quantum uncertainty. Station Omega 9 had become a ghost, existing in a state between detection and invisibility. As the immediate threat passed, the crew gathered around their primary display. The captured fragments of the alien signal began to resolve into something more complex. It wasn't just a communication network. It was a test, a challenge. And humanity, in all its chaotic, unpredictable glory, was the first species to truly engage with it. "We're not just doing science anymore," Marcus said, his cybernetic implant now fully integrated with the station's systems. "We're rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic interaction." Elena looked out at the star-filled darkness, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The Concordance thought they had marginalized humanity. They had no idea what was coming. The signal pulsed. A challenge, an invitation. The real game was just beginning. The kill order came swiftly and without mercy. Projected across every Galactic Concordance communication channel, the bounty for the capture of Station Omega 9's crew made even the most disciplined alien hunters salivate with anticipation. Wanted, technological terrorists. Reward, 50 trillion galactic credits. Charges, unauthorized quantum interference, Disruption of established technological protocols. Potential existential threat to galactic stability. Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied the proclamation with a mixture of dark humor and calculated determination. They were no longer just scientists. They were now the most wanted research team in known space. We've got 3 standard planetary cycles before the first hunter-killer teams arrive, Marcus Chen announced, his cybernetic implant interfacing directly with their improvised navigation systems. And that's assuming they don't cut corners. Dr. Aisha Okoye was already working on their escape strategy. The mysterious signal they'd discovered was more than just a communication network. It was a complex, living system that seemed to respond to human creativity in ways no other civilization could comprehend. Their first jump took them through a region of space considered impossible to navigate. Quantum storms raged between stellar clusters, creating navigation challenges that would obliterate standard chip systems. But standard had never been in their vocabulary. Adaptive quantum routing, Marcus muttered, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to blur the line between technology and organic thinking. We're not avoiding the storms. We're riding them. The ship lurched, not with the mechanical precision of standard spacecraft, but with the wild, unpredictable motion of something alive. They weren't just traveling through space. They were negotiating with it. Bounty hunters began to close in. Sleek alien vessels with technologies that had crushed a dozen lesser civilizations now pursued the human research team. Each ship represented decades, sometimes centuries, of refined technological optimization. But optimization, the crew of Station Omega 9 had discovered, was just another word for limitation. A Zarn hunter-killer ship, a predatory vessel known for its perfect tracking systems, locked onto their position. Its weapon systems represented the pinnacle of galactic military technology, capable of dissolving entire planetary surfaces. Elena watched the approach with an unsettling calm. Aisha, remember that linguistic algorithm we developed? Dr. Okoye's eyes gleamed. Their work in xenolinguistics had never been just about communication. It was about understanding the fundamental language of systems, how they think, how they adapt. As the Zarn ship prepared to fire, something extraordinary happened. The mysterious signal they'd discovered began to pulse in synchronization with their ship's systems. It was as if the network was learning, adapting, choosing sides. The hunter-killer's weapons misfired. Its perfectly calibrated tracking systems suddenly read multiple, conflicting target signatures. One moment, Station Omega 9 was here. The next, it was everywhere and nowhere. We're not running, Elena said quietly. We're evolving. Each escape, each encounter, was teaching them more about the signal. It wasn't just a communication network. It was a test. A challenge issued to find a civilization capable of transcending traditional technological boundaries. And humanity, in all its chaotic, unpredictable glory, was proving to be the most interesting candidate in millennia. The stars blurred around them. Hunters pursued. But for the first time, humanity wasn't just surviving. They were rewriting the rules of an entire galactic civilization. The barely habitable moon was nothing more than a chunk of rock and radiation, its surface a patchwork of metallic crystals and toxic atmospheric remnants. But for the crew of Station Omega 9, it represented their last hope of understanding the mysterious signal that had consumed their existence. Marcus Chen's hands trembled as he began calibrating their prototype interface. His cybernetic implant, once a near-fatal experimental technology, now pulsed with an intelligence that defied its original design. Around him, the makeshift laboratory hummed with potential, a desperate symphony of human innovation. We're not just creating an interface, he muttered to Elena, who watched with intense concentration. We're building a translation device for an entirely new form of communication. Dr. Aisha Okoye had spent weeks breaking down the signal's mathematical language. It wasn't just a communication method. It was a living system that responded to emotional states, intuitive leaps, and the kind of non-linear thinking that most advanced civilizations had engineered out of their species. Emotional feedback loops, Aisha explained, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. The network doesn't just transmit information. It evaluates potential. It tests. Their prototype combined biological feedback sensors, quantum computing, and what could only be described as educated guesswork. Where other civilizations saw rigid systems, humans saw opportunities for radical reimagining. The first connection was nothing short of miraculous. As Marcus activated the interface, the moon around them seemed to come alive. Dormant systems buried beneath centuries of geological accumulation began to pulse with energy. Quantum fluctuations rippled outward, creating cascading effects that would be detected across multiple star systems. "It's responding," Elena whispered, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and primal terror. Not just receiving, responding. The Galactic Concordance's most advanced scanning systems would later report an impossible event. Thousands of dormant communication nodes across hundreds of star systems suddenly flickered to life. Networks that had been silent for millennia began to pulse with an unprecedented energy signature. Humanity's desperate improvisation had just unlocked something the galaxy had forgotten existed. Marcus's cybernetic implant began to overload, processing information at speeds that would have killed any other biological system. But humans had always been masters of surviving the impossible. The implant wasn't just receiving data, it was evolving, creating neural pathways that defied every known principle of technological adaptation. "We're not just making first contact," Marcus gasped, blood trickling from his nose as the implant pushed beyond its designed limits. "We're being evaluated." The signal, no, the network, was testing them, examining their capacity for innovation, their ability to think beyond established technological paradigms. Where other civilizations saw chaos, this network recognized something deeper, the raw, unbridled potential of human creativity. Elena watched as their prototype interface began to map connections across impossible distances. Star systems that had been isolated for millennia suddenly showed signs of interconnectivity. The Galactic Concordance's carefully maintained technological hierarchy was about to face its greatest challenge. Humanity wasn't just participating in galactic civilization anymore. They were about to rewrite its fundamental rules. "Get ready," Elena said to her team, a dangerous smile playing across her lips. "Our real work is just beginning." The Concordance's battle fleet emerged from quantum transit like a swarm of metallic locusts. 12,000 ships, each representing the pinnacle of technological optimization, converged on the human position with mathematical precision. Their weapons could vaporize planetary surfaces, demolish entire solar systems with a calculated efficiency that had crushed 100 civilizations. They expected total annihilation. They were catastrophically wrong. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of their modified research vessel, no longer just a scientific instrument, but a weapon of unprecedented adaptability. Around her, the crew moved with a synchronicity that defied military training, each member an integral part of a living, breathing technological organism. "Incoming primary attack vector," Marcus Chen announced, his cybernetic implant interfacing directly with their quantum defensive systems. Conventional response would be immediate evasion. But there was nothing conventional about their response. The first wave of Concordance energy weapons should have obliterated their position. Instead, they watched in real time as the weapons were systematically redirected, not deflected, not absorbed, actively rerouted through the mysterious network they had partially decoded. Entire squadrons of attack ships found themselves targeted by their own weapon systems. The Concordance's perfectly optimized battle networks suddenly became a liability, their rigid computational structures turned against them by an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. "We're not fighting," Elena said quietly. "We're teaching." Dr. Aisha Okoye managed the quantum interference field, her fingers creating mathematical patterns that seemed to dance between possibility and probability. Where other species saw conflict, she saw communication. The network they had discovered was evaluating their response, testing their capacity for innovation under extreme pressure. Marcus's cybernetic implant began to overheat, He knew what was coming would cost him everything. Quantum cascade initiating, he gasped. Full network integration. The space around them transformed. It wasn't just a battle anymore. It was a live demonstration of humanity's fundamental difference. While the concordance relied on perfect, predictable systems, humans thrived on adaptation, on the ability to transform limitations into opportunities. Ships that should have been destroyed found themselves transported to impossible locations. Weapon systems became communication arrays. The very fabric of space-time seemed to bend around their technological improvisation. And then Marcus made his ultimate sacrifice. Using his cybernetic implant as a quantum interference generator, he created a field that allowed the rest of the team to escape. But it was more than an escape. It was a statement, a final, defiant demonstration of human potential. The implant burned. Marcus's body convulsed as terabytes of information cascaded through his neural pathways. He was becoming something more than human, a bridge between their species' potential and a galactic network that had waited millennia for a civilization capable of true innovation. "Goodbye," Elena whispered, watching her friend's final, extraordinary act of defiance. When the quantum interference cleared, the Concordance battle fleet had been transformed. Not destroyed. Not defeated. Fundamentally altered. Humanity had just fought its first interstellar war, and they hadn't fired a single conventional weapon. The galaxy would never be the same. The network spoke in a language beyond mathematics, beyond communication. It was a living system of potential, a galactic test that had waited millennia for a civilization capable of true innovation. Dr. Aisha Okoy's breakthrough came in the quietest of moments. Surrounded by the remnants of their modified research vessel, with Marcus's final quantum imprint still resonating through their systems, she finally understood the true nature of their discovery. "It's not just a communication network," she told Elena, her voice a mixture of scientific wonder and profound revelation. "It's an evolutionary mechanism." The network had been waiting, watching, testing civilizations across countless millennia, searching for a species capable of transcending technological and biological limitations. Countless advanced civilizations had been deemed unworthy, their perfect, optimized systems proving to be their ultimate limitation. Humans, with their chaotic creativity, their ability to transform weakness into strength, represented something entirely different. Elena studied the holographic projections that now surrounded them. What had begun as a mysterious signal had transformed into a comprehensive map of potential, a living system that evaluated civilizational capacity through something far more complex than technological advancement. They could now access and manipulate fundamental aspects of space-time. But with this power came a terrifying responsibility. Quantum networks that had been dormant for millennia began to pulse with newfound energy. The network was responding to human interaction in ways that defied every known principle of technological communication. It wasn't just sharing information. It was learning, adapting, evolving alongside them. Fragments of ancient technological archives began to resolve. These weren't just data repositories. They were evolutionary records, civilizations that had risen and fallen, each evaluated and ultimately found wanting. The Galactic Concordance, with all its technological might, was just the latest in a long line of systems that had failed the ultimate test. "We're not just accessing information," Aisha explained, her fingers tracing complex quantum pathways. "We're being evaluated, continuously, in real time." The remaining crew members, survivors of their extraordinary journey, began to understand the true nature of their discovery. This network didn't care about traditional markers of technological advancement. It cared about potential, about the capacity to reimagine, to transform, to see beyond established limitations. Ancient systems that had waited millennia began to respond to human interaction. Quantum communication arrays that had been silent for eons flickered to life. Technological archives that predated known galactic civilization began to open. But with this power came a profound understanding. They weren't conquering. They were being tested. Elena looked out at the transformed space around them. Entire star systems seemed to pulse with a new kind of potential. The rigid hierarchies of the galactic concordance were about to face their ultimate challenge. Humanity had always been defined by its capacity to transform limitations into opportunities. Now, they were about to demonstrate that potential on a galactic scale. "We're not just changing technology," Elena said quietly. "We're redefining what it means to be an advanced civilization." The network pulsed in response. A challenge, an invitation. The real evolution was just beginning. Human colonies that had once been considered technological backwaters began to transform. It wasn't just technological advancement. It was a fundamental reimagining of potential. On Mars, terraforming projects that had stalled for decades suddenly accelerated. Quantum communication networks bloomed across previously uninhabitable regions, creating ecosystems that defied traditional scientific understanding. Where other civilizations saw limitations, humans saw opportunities for radical innovation. Elena Rodriguez became more than a scientist. She was a catalyst, a living embodiment of humanity's newfound galactic potential. The galactic concordance watched in growing horror as human colonies began to demonstrate capabilities that shattered every established technological paradigm. Research stations that had been marginalized now pulsed with an energy that rewrote the fundamental rules of scientific exploration. Dr. Aisha Okoye led a team that began to decode the deeper layers of the quantum network. It wasn't just a communication system. It was an evolutionary mechanism that had been waiting millennia for a civilization capable of true adaptive thinking. "We're not just accessing technology," Aisha explained to a group of stunned planetary governors. "We're learning a new language of potential." Each human colony became a node of transformation. On Europa, underwater research stations began to generate energy systems that drew power directly from quantum fluctuations. The Titan research base developed communication protocols that could interface with the mysterious network in ways that defied traditional computational models. The remaining crew of the original station Omega 9 became legendary, not as conquerors, not as warriors, but as explorers of a new kind of possibility. Planetary governments that had once marginalized human potential now scrambled to understand their transformation. The galactic concordance's carefully maintained hierarchical systems began to crumble. Their optimization, once considered the pinnacle of technological achievement, now revealed itself as the ultimate limitation. Elena understood the deeper truth. This wasn't about technological superiority. It was about the capacity to reimagine, to transform, to see beyond established boundaries. On Luna, a research team led by survivors of the original Omega 9 mission developed quantum interfaces that could interpret the network's living mathematical language. They weren't just accessing information. They were engaging in a continuous dialogue with a system of galactic potential. Entire star systems began to respond to human interaction. Dormant technologies that predated known civilization flickered to life. The network wasn't just sharing information. It was learning, adapting, evolving alongside humanity. "We're not conquering," Elena would tell anyone who would listen. "We're demonstrating a different kind of potential." The Concordance's most advanced analysts tried to understand the transformation. Their computational models failed. Their perfectly optimized systems couldn't comprehend a civilization that saw chaos as an opportunity, that transformed limitation into potential. Humanity had always been defined by its capacity to reimagine. Now, they were doing so on a galactic scale. Research stations became living networks. Colonies transformed from isolated outposts to nodes of continuous innovation. The rigid boundaries between technology, biology, and potential began to dissolve. And at the center of it all stood Elena Rodriguez and her team. Not as leaders, but as catalysts of a fundamental transformation. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way, not through conquest, but through the most human of traits: the ability to see possibility where others saw only limitation. The Galactic Concordance's central chamber was a monument to technological perfection, a vast, crystalline space where mathematical precision met architectural brilliance. But today, That perfection trembled. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, not as a conqueror, but as a messenger of possibility. Behind her, a holographic representation of the quantum network pulsed with living energy, its mathematical tendrils weaving through the consciousness of every being present. Adaptation is not a choice, she began, her voice cutting through millennia of established galactic protocol. It's an evolutionary imperative. The Council representatives, beings from 1,000 different civilizations, each representing the pinnacle of their species' technological achievement, watched with a mixture of terror and fascination. Where they saw systems, humans saw potential. Where they saw boundaries, humans saw opportunities for transformation. Dr. Aisha Okoye stepped forward, her presentation interface alive with quantum data streams that defied traditional computational models. Fragments of their journey played out in three-dimensional projections, the desperate moments of Station Omega 9, Marcus Chen's ultimate sacrifice, the battles won through adaptive thinking rather than brute force. The network we've discovered is more than a communication system, Aisha explained. It's a living evaluation mechanism that has waited millennia for a civilization capable of true innovation. The quantum network responded, its mathematical language dancing between possibility and potential. It wasn't just displaying information, it was engaging in a complex dialogue that transcended traditional communication. Memories of their journey flickered through the chamber, the moment they first detected the mysterious signal, the desperate reactor repair that started everything, the quantum battles that rewrote the fundamental understanding of technological conflict. Elena understood the deeper truth. This wasn't about technological superiority. It was about the capacity to reimagine, to transform, to see beyond established boundaries. The Concordance representatives struggled to comprehend. Their perfectly optimized systems, once considered the ultimate achievement of galactic civilization, now revealed themselves as the ultimate limitation. Humanity represented something entirely different, a species that didn't just solve problems, but saw them as opportunities for radical reimagination. We're offering more than technology, Elena said quietly. We're offering a new way of understanding potential. The quantum network pulsed in agreement. It had found what it had been searching for, a species capable of transcending the limitations of technological optimization. Humans didn't see chaos as a problem to be solved. They saw it as an opportunity to create, to evolve, to transform. Entire star systems seemed to hold their breath. The transformation wasn't just technological, it was fundamental. Dr. Okoye's final presentation broke down the network's true nature. It was an evolutionary mechanism, a test that had evaluated countless civilizations and found them wanting. The Galactic Concordance, with all its technological might, was just the latest in a long line of systems that had failed the ultimate challenge. But humanity was different. Where other civilizations saw rigid systems, humans saw fluid potential. Where others sought optimization, humans embraced adaptation. The quantum network had been waiting for a civilization that could truly understand that innovation wasn't about perfection. It was about the capacity to reimagine. The holographic displays showed the transformation of human colonies, terraforming projects that defied scientific understanding, communication networks that transformed entire ecosystems, research stations that pulse with an energy beyond traditional technological boundaries. We're not here to replace, Elena emphasized. We're here to demonstrate a different approach to potential. The Concordance had a choice: continue with their perfectly optimized, but ultimately limited systems, or learn from humanity's approach, to see potential where others saw only boundaries. Quantum communication networks that had been dormant for millennia began to pulse with newfound energy. The network was responding to human interaction in ways that defied every known principle of technological communication. In that moment, humanity was no longer a marginalized species. They were catalysts of a galactic transformation. The chamber fell silent. The quantum network vibrated with anticipation. Thousands of civilizations watched as humanity offered not conquest, but collaboration. Not destruction, but a radical new understanding of what it meant to be an advanced civilization. Elena Rodriguez smiled. Their real journey was just beginning.